Hello, Big Show nerds. Thank you once again for joining me on your Nerd News headlines. My name is Dustin, and these are the headlines for October 18th, 2019. In this episode of your headlines, we are talking about a lot of stuff. This is actually a huge episode. So we've got trouble over on the Mayans MC set. We've got Witcher trailer. We've got Studio Ghibli announcement. We've got a new movie with John Krasinski and Ryan Reynolds. We've got all of that and honestly quite a bit more. This is probably the biggest rumor mill we've done since starting the rumor mill. So let's hit the intro. Let's jump into TV news, shall we? So first and foremost, real quick, we have an update on the All That reboot series over on Nickelodeon. It apparently has done well enough in its first season that they have signed on a second season, which I'm super freaking excited about because not that I necessarily watch the new All That, I just think it's really cool that it came back to begin with and then a new generation of kids has something that they can relate to comedy-wise, because it seemed like for a long time we thought kids didn't like good comedy, and then Nickelodeon was like, we got this show called All That, and it was amazing, and now they're bringing it back. Anyway, so yeah, season 2 is coming for All That. We have next is an interesting one. We have Kurt Sutter. If you don't know who that is, he is the showrunner, or was, I should say, the showrunner for the Mayans Motor Club, Mayans MC over on FX. He also did the Sons of Anarchy show. He was also one of the actors in Sons of Anarchy. I don't know if he's been in Mayans because I haven't been watching Mayans. I got really disinterested about 3 episodes in and was like, this isn't quite as good. But yeah, so Sutter has been released as showrunner, and that's the nice way of saying he was fired for being a douchebag. No specifics on exactly what got him fired, but rumors have it that he's kind of a dick on set, and there were a lot of blow-ups, and there were a lot of fights, and then finally the powers that be were just fed up. Just, you know what? Have a good one, man. We'll see you in the next one. Interesting. It's interesting to see. I wonder what that is going to do to the show, if anything, because we didn't talk about it in the last episode, but while I was doing research for the previous episode of Your Weekend Nerddom and the Nerd News headlines, he was talking about potentially leaving anyway. So is this kind of was he preempting the firing by saying that, or was he just aware that people didn't like him, so he's like, okay, maybe I should leave? Also, he made a comment about the fact that it's time for the old white guy to not be in charge anymore, or something along those lines. So interesting that this is the fallout now, that he was actually fired and he didn't quit. So very, very, I don't know what to make of that. But next we have a new trailer for The Witcher over on Netflix. Still no release date, but we do get to see a little bit more of the world in which they are trying to recreate a little bit from the game, but mostly from the books. So go check that out. Link is, as always, is in the show notes, description, whatever. And that is what we have for television news. So let's move over to movie news. And movie news, we actually have a really big one for all you Studio Ghibli fans that heard the news. I think it was a week ago, it could have been 2 weeks ago, but it was made. The announcement was made that Studio Ghibli movies will never be on a streaming service because they want to pay some sort of. Let's see if I can find the. They had a quote commitment to the theatrical experience, unquote, which sounds like a lot of pretentious garbage. And apparently it was kind of a lie too, because HBO Max just secured the rights to all of the Studio Ghibli movies, so that will be part of their launch list of titles, which is kind of including the new Studio Ghibli movie, which I didn't put in the notes, but it's coming out next year. That also is part of the deal. So that's freaking Cool. Next, we're talking about some some casting updates for The Matrix 4. First off, we have Jada Pinkett-Smith is in negotiations to reprise her role as Niobe, which makes sense. Which, on a side note about that, I think it's kind of funny that Will Smith turned down The Matrix to begin with, and then Jada came in on the second movie, whatever, saw that it made money, went, oh, hey, maybe we should be a part of that. But whatever. Neil Patrick Harris is also supposedly going to be in the cast now. He has been cast in an undisclosed role. And then our final casting update for this is Jessica Henwick has been cast in a lead role that they are calling Neo-like, or a female Neo, which I find intriguing. Is this going to be a Lego sequel kind of like we saw with Star Wars and such, where it's like it's a continuation of the story, but it's also a passing of the torch to a new generation? So will Keanu Reeves die? Will Neo no longer be part of the Matrix story, or Trinity for that matter, since we know that both of them are going to be in it? It's very interesting to think about, and that's just me throwing stuff on the wall to see what sticks. So don't take that as even rumor, because that just came out of my mouth just now. That's what we've got there. Next, we have a really interesting announcement for a new movie. John Krasinski will be writing, directing, and starring in a movie called Imaginary Friends with Ryan Reynolds. The premise of the movie, and the reason I'm putting this in your news for today's episode is because John Krasinski and Ryan Reynolds, A. B, both of them have crazy nerd cred, so it will be interesting to see what they do with this. The premise of the movie is, I believe it's Krasinski will be playing the lead actual real person who can talk to other people's imaginary friends, and some of which, once they get forgotten, become very angry, and then therein lies conflict. And then presumably Ryan Reynolds will be one of those imaginary friends, very likely not going to be the villain of the movie, but also potentially could be the other way around. Maybe Krasinski's the imaginary friend and Ryan Reynolds is the real person. I couldn't really make out that detail. All I saw was that was the premise, and one of those two guys is going to be the real person lead, and one of those two guys is going to be the imaginary friend lead. So that sounds like crazy fun, and if Krasinski's on the task of writing and directing, then it'll also look fantastic and be very well directed. So there you go. Next, we have a real quickie update for the Addams Family animated movie. I know it's already come out. I have yet to watch it, sadly, though apparently I'm one of the minority because it's done so well that MGM has already signed on to do a sequel and already given us a release date for the sequel. So the release date will be October 22nd of 2021, which means they are already very heavily in production on it. So the fact that it did well was just a bonus, because if they're announcing it to be 2 years out, digital animation takes significantly longer than that, at least a year longer than that by most assumptions. So that means they've at least been in some form of production for at least 6 months or so on the sequel to this. This feels like another extension of the TV stuff where we get season 1 announced, and then before season 1 airs, they say, oh yeah, and by the way, we're doing season 2 because we know you're going to love season 1. This is kind of the same thing, only in movie form, right? But is that a bad thing? I don't know. I haven't seen it yet. We're moving on. Next, we are talking about The Batman, and there's been a couple of updates since last we spoke. First of which being that Zoe Kravitz has been officially cast as Catwoman. That is correct. Zoe Kravitz has been the one that they have offered the role to, and she presumably has taken it because she's been congratulated by Jason Momoa and just the people. And then the other thing is that Jonah Hill is not going to be a part of this. Apparently the deal fell through, and there's a rumor about who the Riddler is going to go to, because it was leaked that Jonah Hill was looking more at the Riddler than at the Penguin, and then for a second, Seth Rogen was being eyed to play the Penguin opposite Jonah Hill, which would be very strange because those aren't exactly humorous. I mean, Riddler kind of is a humorous villain, but Penguin not so much, so would be a very interesting take on them, but it's not happening. So yeah, the Jonah Hill thing fell through. It's not going to be a thing, and we'll get into who's rumored to be the Riddler for the movie once we get to the rumor mill. But that's what we've got for Batman. Next, we have a quickie update for The Craft. That's right, that 90s reboot that just because that's all the rage right now, and the 90s are very strong with this reboot because David Duchovny, Fox Mulder, has been cast, and they don't know, they didn't say specifically what for, but he is going to be in the movie, presumably, probably as like one of the dads to one of the girls in The Coven, because that's kind of, there was a minor role that was a dad or a mom or something from the original 90s movie. If you have no idea what I'm talking about, go watch The Craft. It's not horrible cinema, but it's definitely not great either. And then we have an interesting update from the MCU camp as it pertains to Edward Norton. Edward Norton did an interview with Games Radar saying that he can see himself coming back to the MCU, which is really just him saying, I screwed up by burning that bridge, and now I want to come back to the MCU. And his idea was that he would like to come back as potentially a bad guy, or a baddie, quote unquote, as he put it. So that is very interesting thought. And that's how I'm going to end the movie section, is I'm going to pass off to you guys. Who would you like to see Edward Norton play villain-wise from the Marvel comic book universe? Because basically, Disney owns about 90% of the Marvel comic book universe now. Feige being announced as the creative director overall, TV, animation, movies, and comic books kind of cements that, right? So, who do you want to see Edward Norton play should he actually make this MCU return? Now let's talk about the rumors, shall we? Rumor mill is actually, like I've said, I think this might be the biggest rumor mill we've ever had. So first we have an interesting picture from the set of the Suicide Squad, the James Gunn Suicide Squad. So as we talked about in the last rumor mill, it's been rumored that Nathan Fillion is going to be playing Arms Fall Off Boy. And again, that is a real character. But now with these images that have leaked, people are saying, no, he's going to be playing Blackguard. And I can kind of see similarities there, but it seems more in line with a modern redesign for a live-action version of Arms Fall Off Boy. So my vote still goes with Arms Fall Off Boy, but could very potentially, I do see how it could be Blackguard. But Blackguard's a villain, though it is Suicide Squad, so that would make a little bit more sense. Again, rumors, so who knows? Next, we have that Batman update that I was telling you about in the movies section. So Paul Dano, who you will remember from movies like The Girl Next Door and Little Miss Sunshine, he's done quite a bit since then, but those are kind of the closest to nerd cred I feel like that he's done. It is rumored that he is going to be the next Riddler in the opposite, Robert Pattinson as Batman and now Zoe Kravitz as Catwoman, Paul Dano as the Riddler. I dig it. I actually, if this becomes a legit thing, I'm totally behind this decision because I think Dano's kind of an underappreciated actor. And granted, he's done a lot of directing and such more recently, but I feel like he's a pretty underappreciated actor, so it would be really cool to see him in that role. Next, we're talking, all right, so I briefly passed over some Marvel stuff in the movies section. We're going to kind of revisit that because it has some implications that has been fueling some rumors. So this is a comic book rumor, technically speaking, but Kevin Feige, having been again announced as the chief creative officer at Marvel over movies, TV, animation, and comic books. The only thing he's not chief creative officer at Marvel is gaming, and Lord knows that's sure just around the corner. So, Jeff Loeb, the announcement has been made that Jeff Loeb is still the director of Marvel comic books. So he is still the big guy on top at Marvel comic books specifically. He just now has to report to Feige, and so Feige has kind of final say in everything. So, there have been rumors for a little while that Loeb is on his way out, because apparently he's also a jerk, kind of like Kurt Sutter over at the Mayans, but I don't know. I love Loeb's writing, so I don't know how he conducts business, because Loeb and Sale have written some of the best freaking Batman comic books ever. Anyway, so Jeff Loeb and potentially Ike Perlmutter are both rumored to be quote-unquote retiring at the end of the year, when really it sounds like this is just Marvel being nice and pushing them out the door, and the Kevin Feige announcement is just the front end of them announcing their quote-unquote retirement. So yeah, very interesting. And then there's another MCU rumor that is claiming, again, because Feige is the man on top, that the comic books are now also going to become much more similar to the movies. So the comic book universe is going to resemble the MCU, and it kind of was already going in that direction anyway. It seems that they're testing ideas out in the comic books, and if whatever works, whatever sticks, finds its way into the movies, and whatever doesn't stick, they just kind of continue on writing it out, changing things so that to see what else could work in the movies. So that doesn't seem too far off base for rumors either. Next, we have a very detailed leak, potentially. It's a rumor because it's unsubstantiated, about James Gunn's Guardians of the Galaxy 3 script. So take this with a gigantic grain of salt, because it very well could be wrong, but it seems that this version of Guardians of the Galaxy is going to focus highly on Rocket Raccoon, and also is going to see the end of Rocket Raccoon, which seems very strange because James Gunn has come out and said very explicitly that Rocket Raccoon is his favorite character in the Guardians of the Galaxy comic books. So why he would kill him off seems a little weird. But so the plot details that have leaked out deal with the fact that Rocket is is having something of a soul-searching issue and trying to figure out where he comes from, and then he comes down with some giant illness which forces the matter, and well, now I have to find out where I come from because I need to get better. I need to find out how I can fix this illness, which that journey leads him to the High Evolutionary, who apparently created Rocket Raccoon because he was experimenting on a raccoon. And then the conflict between he and the High Evolutionary kills Rocket. A lot of this sounds really weak, so I don't know. It did come from multiple sources, though. This is one that I could substantiate through two different places, though both of those places are very unreliable. So take with that what you will. We are now moving over to Venom 2, and there has been apparently a rumor that we will be seeing not only Carnage as the villain in Venom 2, but also Shriek. Because we do know that Venom 3 is reportedly going to be, in some part, the Maximum Carnage storyline. It does make sense that they would introduce Shriek in this movie, in the second movie, because then they would be gearing up for that third movie, right? So if that is the case, it makes sense, but it sounds like, according to this rumor, that she is going to be a major player in this movie and not just introduced kind of in passing like you might expect as they're gearing up for a third movie. So very interesting. Again, Shriek comes from the Maximum Carnage story in the comic books. That was where she debuted back in the 90s. So it sounds like they're trying to get a little bit closer to the source material, even though at the base it is inherently flawed because there's no Spider-Man in this universe yet, so whatever. Next is another potential leak, and this one's kind of hard to tell because the image quality sucks, but is this the redesign for Sonic? Could be. If you're just listening to audio for this episode, then definitely you don't know what I'm talking about. Right now we are looking at the image of what looks to be more game accurate and also animated series accurate version of Sonic, but still has that furry kind of feel to the way it looks. So it might be an accurate leak. It might be just somebody having fun with Photoshop. I don't know, but it is potentially... If this is the way he looks now, it definitely looks better, because it is not the craziness that was that first design. And also kind of touching on because I wasn't really in full swing when that whole debacle fell out. The craziness about his teeth, like, did you guys watch the animated series? He had human-like teeth in the animated series. And I'm fairly certain in every iteration of the video game that you see his teeth, because you don't always see Sonic's teeth, but anytime you have seen his teeth, he has human-like teeth. I don't understand why that was part of the uproar about the design of Sonic. There was so much else wrong with that design. The teeth should have been the least of your worries, and actually shouldn't have been a worry at all, because, again, every other version of this character has human-like teeth, so why would we get mad that he had human-like teeth still? Whatever. So yeah, but potentially the Sonic redesign has leaked, and it looks good. If this is legit, this is much more in line with what we expect out of what that character should look like. What is next? Next, we have an image. A legit image of Ryan Reynolds standing in front of the Marvel Studios sign. And it's been confirmed that Ryan Reynolds has been having conversations with the upper-ups at Marvel, the MCU specifically, Marvel Studios. But what have those... So the rumor is that he's been trying to plead the case for Deadpool to stay as it is. Because a couple of weeks ago, we got the writers of the Deadpool movies, as they've been doing the press junkets and such in support of Zombieland Double Tap. They were asked, obviously, questions about Deadpool and the future of Deadpool in the MCU. Can they see it going as a PG-13 movie? Do they think that Feige and Iger and such will allow it to be an R-rated movie? How will it sit in the landscape of Disney? And they were kind of uncertain of it. So the rumor surrounding this picture of Ryan Reynolds in front of the Marvel Studios logo at the Marvel Studios, presumably the Marvel Studios building, is that he's doing what he can to introduce Deadpool into the Disney MCU, or he's trying to figure out where else he fits in as an actor into the MCU, because Deadpool might be dead. That I don't think is at all the case. I think it's more the former and less of the latter, because Ryan Reynolds loves that character. Why would he abandon it? But whatever. It's just rumors, right? And then our final rumor mill point also has to do with an image. So again, my apologies to the audio guys for the end of this episode, because you don't get to see these images, but you can look them up. I will try and find links and such to put in the show notes if I can. There has been a leaked image from the Stranger Things Season 4 set, and that image is simply a vehicle. Now, the driver of this vehicle is the reason this rumor is gaining some traction, because it looks very much like Hopper's truck. I guess it's a Suburban, right? That's what he drives. So it looks very, very much like that same vehicle that Hopper drives. So is this image confirming the fact that Hopper will in fact come back in season 4? Or are they they could be filming a flashback? There's any number of explanations for this, but the big rumor is that this is 100% confirmation that Hopper will return for season 4. But I don't know. It's just rumors. That does it for this episode of Headlines Nerds. For a more in-depth conversation on these nerdy bits, plus much more nerdy action, we're talking about new music from Lord of the Lost, Ice Nine Kills. We're talking about Outer Worlds launch trailer. There's a bunch of other stuff that we're going into in more detail over on my YouTube channel, Generally Nerdy. But while you're here, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share on all of the Big Show Entertainment Media platforms. Don't forget about those contests that we're doing. We have the subscription contest that you could win a PlayStation 4 Pro, or the Star Wars contest where we are giving away 3 different lightsabers. You can find details about those contests and all kinds of other stuff right here on the Big Show Entertainment Network. But that does it again for the episode. Tune in next time for all that is happening across the nerd world.